webinar series of career opportunities in food science and technology. So we have started this initiative long back, and we are very happy that we have received a very good response from students as well as from the expert from food industries as well as from the academia. So in this context, today we have with us Dr. Sonal Patil, who is currently working as Assistant Manager R&D at Nielsen's Enterprises. And she was immediate past faculty working at School of Biotechnology and Bioinformatics, D.Y. Patil University, Navi Mumbai. And I'm so proud and happy that I got an opportunity to work and guide the student like Sonal. Sonal was my student for MTech as well as PhD. Sonal did her BTech from UD Jalgaon, where she was a gold medalist. And when she joined under me, it was like a very beautiful, coordination, and our relationship was like so gelled well. She could present her work at different places. Some places she also grabbed awards during her MTech itself, and she was so good even at MTech research. She published her work during this MTech research, and then she got selected for working into an industry called as a Mapro Foods, everyone knows. And there also, after working there, she realized that okay, now I am so good in research, I should come back again to ICT, and she again joined with me for PhD research student. So friends, you will not believe, again after taking a break working in the industry for family break, she could adopt all the things and research. She excelled into research so well and so nicely, and she has a research publications of high standard and repute, around 22 publications. Her H index is so good, and she has done a very good justice to the research. After doing her PhD, she joined Fazlani Exports as an executive research and new product development. And then later on, she realized that I'm good at academics and I should go back. And she did for 2 years a job of faculty where she was associated with School of Biotechnology, teaching all the subjects in food science and technology. And later on, recently she has joined as an assistant manager R&D at Nielsen's Enterprises. And I'm so happy, Sonal, for your all successful career steps that you have taken in your career, entire career journey of food science and technology. And I'm so thankful that today you have accepted our invitation and have agreed to speak to our students, sharing on some of the important technical topics. Because students, when you appear for interviews, sometimes there are some technical topics wherein you will be expected to have the information about that topic. So today Dr. Sonal would be talking on valorization approach in food industry waste management. So today, wherever you go for any interview, for any industry, especially food industry, it is expected that you understand for the circular economy. You understand how, there is no concept of waste. How can you utilize completely the entire waste so that it adds to the circular economy? So this is a very important topic, and considering that importance of that topic, Dr. Sonal has agreed to speak with us on that very important topic. And once again, thank you, Sonal, for accepting our invitation and sharing your thought on a very important topic. So over to you, Sonal.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am.
Hello, Sonal.
Yes. I will share my screen, ma'am.
Yeah, please.
Okay, so is my screen visible?
Just if you can make it in the presentation mode, it would be nice.
Yeah. It's visible now?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, first of all, thank you very much, ma'am, for inviting me to speak in this panel. Indeed, it's a great honor to speak in front of you, especially you, ma'am. Okay, so before I start with today's presentation, here's a glimpse of my firm. So currently where I'm working. Okay, yeah, so I work with Nilons Enterprises Private Limited as an assistant manager in R&D, research and development. Okay, yeah. So basically, Nilons Enterprises Private Limited has gained its popularity in Indian kitchens as Mama's best kept secret. Okay, it was founded in 1962, and today the firm is present in over 20 countries across the globe. Today, Nilons is one of India's fastest growing processed food companies with an extensive range of quality products. We have a very diverse range of products. Yeah, and now we hold the brand slogan Nilon se to acha hai. Okay, yeah, so we have 6 manufacturing plants across India with almost 3,000 plus distributors and 4 lakh plus retail outlets. Okay, yeah. And so these are the statements for Nilon's vision and values. Yeah, definitely we are quality driven, customer centric. We have leadership qualities and responsive. Okay, yeah. So proceeding with the product portfolio that we hold. Yes. So this is just a glimpse, a short range of product that we hold. Okay. Actually, this is just a small representation of what we have. We have a diverse range of quality food products within us. We include cooking pests, we have RTC products, we have instant soups, nuts, pasta, vermicelli. We have a range of juice products as well, jams, ketchup and sauces, pickles, spices, chutneys, breakfast cereals, to name a few. Okay, yeah. So, yeah, moving to our topic. Yeah, so the topic of our discussion today is valorization. Yeah, so basically, valorization is a holistic approach. Sorry, is a holistic approach of food production. What we can say. Okay, so basically speaking about food. Yeah, what a food basically is. So it is any nourishing substance. Yeah, as all of us know. Yeah, all of us who are present here are all food technologists, right? Yeah, so it is any nourishing substance that is eaten, drunk, or otherwise taken, yeah, into the body. Why? For the purpose of sustaining life, yes, providing energy, promote growth, yeah, and many more functions. Okay, and these food, yeah, this food may be of plant origin or animal origin. Yeah, so yeah, speaking about the fundamental needs, food is the first fundamental need that human being possess, right? Okay, yeah. So basically, whenever we are speaking about food, what comes into our mind is yes, a plate full of wholesome food, delicious food, or all the favorite food products of our ranges. Okay, basically a plate full of variety of dishes. Yeah, yes, definitely. Yeah, yes, definitely. As food technologists, we know the processes, yeah, the pre-treatments and the technologies which have been involved before its preparation. Yeah, before this plate is being served to us. Yes, okay. But yes, there's also an involvement of a huge amount of waste which has been generated behind this plate. Yeah, and also not to forget, maybe after the consumption of this plate as well. Yeah, so before the plate reaches to us, and once we have consumed the food, there is generation of waste. Yeah, now what sort of waste are being generated? Yes, there are, say, seafood processing waste, there are cereal waste. Yeah, this is sugarcane bagasse waste. Yeah, then we have all legumes and pulses waste. We have, yeah, this is rice straw, yeah, agricultural waste. byproducts and wastes. We have fruits and vegetable waste. We have meat processing waste, poultry processing wastes. Yes, yes. So roughly, okay, roughly speaking, almost 1/3 of the edible parts of food produced from human consumption gets wasted globally. Okay, and that usually accounts about 1.3 billion ton per year. That's a pretty huge number. Yeah, that's a pretty big number. Okay, yeah. So what basically this food waste is? Yeah, so coming to this food waste, yes, they are usually residues. Those have been generated by the processing of raw agricultural materials. Yeah, so this is my mistake here. Not only agricultural materials, yeah. Also our dairy industry, we have seafood industry, yeah, we have meat industry. Okay, so these are usually the residues which has been generated by the processing of raw materials into food. Yeah, and they are usually made up of liquids and solids. Yeah, yeah. So this is wastewater, solid food wastes, and byproducts, right? And byproducts. Okay. Now, I think we all of us are pretty well aware about what is wastewater, what are solid food waste, and what are byproducts. Okay. Yeah. So the wastewater, yeah. So technically speaking, the dry material in wastewater is typically less than 5% by mass. Okay, it possibly contain organic as well as inorganic cleaning agents or disinfectants. Okay, so basically all the water that comes out from the cleaning processes, yeah, and this is in the form of excessive or polluted processed water. Okay, then we have got solid food wastes. Yes, so basically the solid content in such waste is on the higher side. Okay, so that higher side is mostly about 80% by mass. Okay, yeah, and they are what we can say usually characterized by their constant quality or constant characteristics of the waste. Okay, then we have got byproducts. Okay, so the term byproduct is very common in industry. Okay, so how we can differentiate between the waste and byproduct? Yeah, we'll be going through this differentiation in our subsequent slides. Okay, yeah, so okay, so basically this slide deals with this differentiation. Okay, the byproduct and the waste. Okay, so food processing wastes are those end products of food industries that have not been recycled or used for any other purposes. Okay, in other words, these wastes, those are not used for any other purpose, or even if there is any intentional use, the cost of processing is much more on the higher side as compared to the final product. Okay, so all the money will be going in the processing, whereas the money that is coming from the final product, that will be very less. Okay, and talking about the byproducts, yes, definitely the byproducts, they can be recycled. Okay, the byproducts have beneficial uses. Okay, or these byproducts can be treated as raw material for other processes, yeah, for other processes wherein more valuable products can be generated. At the same time, there won't be any detrimental environmental effects. Okay, yes, so yeah, yes, this slide is again saying about the differentiation. Yeah, so based on the usability, byproduct can be processed further, whereas the wastes are not suitable, yeah, for processing as well as for direct use. Okay, and there is certainty. Yeah, there is certainty in the further use of these byproducts, whereas the waste products, they are often discarded. Yeah, talking about the legislations, further use in compliance with all relevant product. Okay, byproducts can be used further in compliance with all relevant product. Yeah, whereas waste, yes, it has to be, it has to go through waste management. Yeah, there are various rules and legislations with respect to waste management treatment. Yeah, as well as there are various waste disposal laws. Yeah, even in India. Okay, even in India, I don't know whether you have visited any food industry or not, but whenever you are visiting a food industry, uh, I will advise you to, observe, okay? You will observe that there is one mandatory WTP or ETP plant, okay? Wastewater treatment plant as well as effluent treatment plant, okay? Whichever sludge, okay, or whatever wastewater that you are discarding into the municipal sewage or say into the river or sea, it has to, follow certain rules or certain law, okay? The BOD value, the COD value, the solid content value is already been specified for this waste, which is being generated from food industry. Okay, yes, so talking about the examples of byproduct, yeah, we have animal feed, fertilizer, cosmetics, bioplastics, lubricant, okay, and on the other hand, for waste, we have examples of pellets, plastics, paper, metal, and wood, okay, which cannot be used further, okay, which cannot be used further. Okay, so this byproduct and this waste product, okay, now basically from where this waste product come, okay, from where this byproduct come, okay, so this byproduct or these waste products, they are generated from each and every step of the food supply chain. Okay, so what is the food supply chain? Yes, from farm to fork method. Yeah, I think we are all aware about what is the farm to fork. Okay, so all the processes, those have been involved till the time the food reaches to our plate. Okay, those two plates that we have seen in the beginning. Okay, at farming level, at the manufacturing facility, at packaging, at distribution, transportation, market, as well as to home. And also after the food is being consumed, okay, there is generation of either byproduct or waste product, right? Okay, yeah, so these are the types of food processing waste. Yeah, as I have stated earlier, we have got vegetable waste, fruits waste, marine waste, yeah, seafood waste, okay, oil residues, brewery waste, bakery waste, meat waste, and poultry waste as well. Okay, so there is another characterization more or less similar, wherein these food byproducts and waste, they are categorized into two categories. The first one is food supply chain waste, and the second one is domestic waste. Okay, so as the name suggests, okay, so food supply chain waste, they are being generated or produced at the food supply chain level, and the domestic waste are, basically they are generated at what we can say at domestic level. Okay, so food supply chain waste include organic crop residues, catering waste, animal byproducts, packaging, and mixed food waste. Okay, whereas the domestic food wastes are, yes, so there are no duty or care which has been applied to this domestic, and basically this is a very saddening situation. Yeah, so which are the applications they are doing as of now? The landfill, incineration, anaerobic digestion, yes, along with the good treatments, all these so-called good treatments, they are responsible for the production of greenhouse gases as well. Okay, they are adding onto the, what we can say, air pollution. Yeah, they are rather more harmful to us as compared to the benefits or beneficial points that they are offering to us. Okay, okay. Yes, so coming to the next slide that we have. Okay, so yes, we have spoken about what is waste, what is byproduct, okay, how it is produced, what are the types of byproduct or waste. Now let's see about the magnitude of byproducts, okay, and you won't believe that more than half of the dry matter produced annually in any agricultural crops, yeah, say cereals, legumes, roots, and tuber crops, is the inedible phytomer. Okay, so just think about the sugarcane. Okay, think about the sugarcane. What is the amount of plant produce that we consume, and the amount of plant produce that is not edible? Yeah, same applies with the rice, same applies to the wheat, same applies to the pulses, oilseeds, legumes as well. Yeah, the amount of portion that is actually edible, it's much smaller than the one which is not edible. Okay, so if comparing to the actual utilizable crop produce to the crop residues produced, there is a huge gap. Okay, so just to name one, in case of wheat, the crop production of 74.3 metric ton, okay, the actual usable crop production 0.3 metric ton produces, okay, this 74.3 metric ton of crop produces 111.4 metric ton of crop residue. Okay, and the ratio is almost same in all the crops. Okay, so imagine the level of crop residues which are being produced every year. Okay, if we are comparing with the population of India, the demand of food for that particular population and the amount of residue that is being generated. Okay, so this gap is very large, what we can say, and there has to be, okay, there has to have an efficient utilization, efficient treatment of the crop residues, and at the same time, that treatment must not be harmful to the environment, right? Okay. Yeah, so this is the percentage wastage that is being generated. Okay, so just to name the one, in case of cereal, about 6% of the wastage is being generated at the production level, 7% during post-harvest and handling, 3.5% during processing and packaging, 2% during distribution, and 3% at the time of consumption. Okay, so almost around, say, 20% of the waste is being generated in case of one cereal product. Okay, so same applies, and that too when you are, jumping to the non-vegetarian category, okay, animal food category, this generation of waste is even more. Okay, is even more. Okay, yes. So coming to the next slide. Okay, so speaking about the waste management. Now we understand that there is a huge amount of waste that is being generated, and this waste has to be managed very carefully. Yeah, in order to produce more valuable products. Yeah, in order to what we can say, in order to benefit the producers basically. At the same time, it should be an environment friendly treatment. Okay, yeah. So basically, what is waste management? So waste management is nothing but the whole set of techniques, okay, is the whole set of techniques which are involved into the disposal of the waste, right from the collection, transport, processing, disposal, and as well as managing and monitoring of waste materials. Okay, yes. Now, this waste management, it relates to, just a second. Okay, so this relates to materials which has been produced by human activity. Okay, and why the processes are undertaken? Yes, they are usually undertaken to reduce their effect on health as well as the environment and the aesthetics. Okay, and the aesthetics. Basically, this is a very distinct practice. Okay, this is a very distinct practice from resource recovery. Okay, so why do you manage this waste? Why do you treat this waste to recover the resources? Those can be reused. Okay, and those can benefit the farmers or those can benefit the producers. Okay, so all the waste materials, whether they are solid, liquid, gaseous, or radioactive, they fall within the remit of waste management. Okay, so every minute particle of this waste that is being generated, it falls within the waste management category. Okay, so the primary objective, yeah, what is the primary objective of the waste management? Yes, it is to completely prevent the production of waste. Okay, so this is the concept which is theoretically possible but not practically. Okay, so there won't be the complete prevention, but yes, the objective, the aim should always be towards the complete minimization of waste production. Okay, yes. Secondly, if there is generation of waste, it has to be reduced. Okay, it has to be reduced. Now when you have reduced amount of waste, it needs to be recycled. Okay, it needs to be recycled. Okay, yeah. So how the waste management has been done? Okay, so there are hierarchies which has been suggested. Okay, so there is a waste hierarchy. It is usually referred as 3R concept. Okay, 3R. So these 3Rs, it refers to reduce, reuse, and recycle. Okay, as you can see, the most desirable, the most favored one is the reduction in the waste generation, whereas the least favored one is the recycled. Okay, is the recycle. Okay, so basically it classifies the strategies. Okay, this 3R hierarchy classifies the strategies depending on, okay, depending on the desirability in terms of waste minimization. Okay, now this waste hierarchy, it remains as the cornerstone of most waste minimization strategies. Okay, and the aim of this particular hierarchy is the maximum practical benefits should be extracted from products and to generate the minimum amount of waste. Okay, yes, right. So the R's, okay, the R's are the categories at the top of our disposal options. Okay, so when when there is nothing possible, yeah, not reduction, reuse, or recycle, or when there is all the R stages have been done, reduction, reuse, and recycle, then and then only you should go for disposal. Okay, yes, and then as well, there are a variety of initiatives which has been taken for disposing of discards. Okay, yes. So generally options lowest on the list are least desirable. Okay, yes. However, there may be 5 steps in the waste hierarchy. Those are reduce, reuse, recycle, recovery, and disposal. Okay, recovery and disposal. Yes, so basically these 3 R's, they are considered to be the best of the environmental awareness. Yes. Okay, yes, so coming to the next slide. Okay, so basically, yeah, the utilization and disposal of product specific waste is difficult. Yeah, now why this disposal is difficult? Why the product specific waste disposal is difficult? Yes, because of these reasons: biological stability and the potential growth of pathogens. Yes, as all of us know. Okay, many types of waste material, okay, those have been generated. They either already contain a large number of microorganisms, yeah, and there may be the presence of pathogens as well. Okay, and yes, definitely there may be chances of infectious diseases if these wastes they are left untreated. Yeah, and also they may be responsible for the generation of strong odor. Yes, yeah. The next one is high water content. Yes, the water content in, for example, say meat byproducts or vegetable waste, it lies between almost say 70 to 95% by mass. Okay, and this is a very high number. So it increases transport costs. Okay, so whichever treatment that you are applying to this waste, it will be including your transport costs as well. And because of this high water content, the transportation costs will be increasing, and ultimately the process won't be economically feasible. Yeah, rapid oxidation. Yes, so wastes which are high in fat content, they may undergo auto-oxidation, which will be responsible for foul smelling fatty acids. Yeah, and yes, there are again chances of changes those may take place due to enzymatic activity. Okay, although it is being considered as waste, the enzymes which are present into these wastes, they are still active. Okay, and they may accelerate or intensify the reactions which are involved in spoilage. Okay, yes. So yeah, so we know how to manage this, why the management is necessary, and what are the difficulties. Okay, so how do are the management strategies for food waste management? Okay, yes, so basically whenever you proceed with waste management strategy or waste treatment, you need to characterize your waste first. Yeah, rather, whenever we conduct our research, whenever we conduct our research, okay, I owe this to you, ma'am. You have taught me how to research. You have put that ray into my research. Okay, yeah. So before we commence with any research, okay, before we commence with any process, what is the first thing that we do? Okay, the very first thing that we usually do is characterization. Okay, unless and until you characterize the substance which has been put in front of you, you won't be able to, speak about or recognize its properties. Yeah, you won't be able to efficiently make any application of the concerned product or the concerned substance, right? So before you commence with any waste management strategy or any waste treatment strategy, what is the first thing that you do is the characterization. Okay, yes, a comprehensive, a detailed characterization of the waste is needed. Why? For, yes, for determination of composition and characteristics owing to their heterogeneity. Okay, owing to their heterogeneity. Yeah, as we all know, there is a diverse range of food products that we have. Yeah, we have cereal products, we have legumes, we have pulses, we have meat, we have dairy byproducts, we have dairy waste, we have poultry waste. Yeah, we have marine and seafood wastes. Right. So this heterogeneity causes, what does it cause? It causes the diverse range of characterization, yeah, and diverse range of composition of these waste byproducts. Okay, yes. So before you commence with any treatment, you need to know the composition of the waste. You need to know the characteristics of the waste. Okay, yes. Moreover, these wastes are produced in large quantities and constitute a source of nuisance in municipal landfills. Okay, so what is the usual thing that we do in India? Not only in India, but across the globe. Yeah, across the globe, the very first thing that is being done with waste is the land filling. You won't believe, once I have visited Gujarat, Ahmedabad, or even in here in Pune. Yeah, I'm currently residing in Pune. I have seen almost like a mountain-like structure. Yeah, a mountain-like structure that is made up of what? The landfill. Okay, the dumping garden, basically. The dumping garden. And just imagine the amount of gases that it is producing and how it is polluting the air. Okay, and how it is being responsible for the global warming. Okay, yes, so it is creating a nuisance in municipal landfills. Okay, and without proper treatments, these wastes contain large amounts of solid suspensions and they have high BOD. Okay, I hope all of you are aware about what is BOD, biological oxygen demand. Okay, yes. So coming back to the waste management strategies. Okay, coming back to the waste management strategies, yes, we have conventional practices and we have valorization. Basically, these are termed as novel valorization practices as well. Okay, so since my topic deals more with valorization, I won't be, covering these conventional practices in detail, but yes, I would like to give you a small brief on these conventional practices as well. Okay, yes, so yeah, coming to the okay, so I shall discuss these conventional practices first. Okay, so talking about animal feeding. Okay, talking about animal feeding. If you are visiting any village, yeah, so you might have seen ki whichever is the, say, rice straw hai, rice husk hai, or the agricultural produce hai. Okay, in small amount that is being fed to the animals. Yeah, the household cow. Yeah, but this option, this option of animal feeding, it should be considered carefully because not every animal can take every food. Okay, yes, moreover, there is a risk. Yeah, moreover, there is a risk which is involved in this type of waste management strategy. Why? Yes, because the risk is that the residues destined to animal feeding may have toxic compounds. Yeah, they may have toxic compounds. And also, as we have seen, there may be the possible chances of microbial load onto it, okay, that may be detrimental to the health of the animal. Yeah, or they may also transmit diseases. Okay, so, and which may be, what can I say, unbalanced thing. Okay, or which this may be an unbalanced thing with respect to the diet of the particular animal. Okay, yes, so this option is least favored one, what we can speak about. Okay, now the second thing is land filling. Okay, so this land filling is the most adopted practice for waste management. Okay, across the globe, across the globe. Okay, it is the most common and simple way to dispose of solid residue despite of its environmental impact. Okay, yes, in case of wastes, those have been generated from food industry, this is mainly due to its high biodegradability associated to a high content of nutrients. Yeah, as all of us know, which is whatever is the waste that is being generated from the food industry, it is on the higher side with respect to nutrients. Yeah, and they are more biodegradable in nature. So it is a very usual practice ki whichever the waste is being generated, use it for land filling. Okay, use it for land filling. But yes, there is again a risk involved in land filling. Okay, what happens during land filling? Okay, what happens during land filling is the degradation. Yeah, it is the degradation, basically the anaerobic biological degradation, which is responsible for the production of methane. Okay, which is responsible for the production of methane along with some CO2 gas. Okay, the produced gas, which is also termed as biogas, okay, it is a mixture of our methane and CO2. Now, as all of us know, yes, this CO2, yeah, and these gases, they are often emitted to the atmosphere, and since this is land filling, there is no control over the parameters such as time, temperature, yeah, or the humidity. So there is wild generation of these gases, and ultimately they are contributing to greenhouse emissions. Okay, yes, so coming to the next practice, that is composting. So this is a bit different from land filling, as in case of in land filling there is the wild degradation. Yeah, there is the wild biodegradation, but in case of composting, this is not wild. Yes, this is a controlled. Okay, so composting is nothing but a controlled treatment process wherein anaerobic biodegradation takes place. Okay, so again, same production, yeah, same gases production takes place, and they again, okay, so in spite of the biogas which is being actually used in, say, cooking hai or any other household application, say, some part of it is again contributing to the greenhouse gases. Okay, and it is being responsible for the global warming. Okay, yeah, and next, yeah, and composting, yes, there is another aspect. Okay, I hope you guys are aware about composting, what is biological degradation. Okay, so just to mention here, there are four processes which has been involved in this biological degradation process. Yeah, so they are hydrolysis. Okay, next is acidogenesis, next is acetogenesis, and methanogenesis. Okay, so what happens during hydrolysis? Yes, all of us know it is nothing but the breakdown. Our complex molecules, they are broken down to simpler forms. Okay, acidogenesis, what happens in acidogenesis? The acidogenic bacteria, they convert hydrolysis products into volatile fatty acids. Okay, and during the next step, there is conversion. Okay, there is conversion by synthropic acidogens to the higher organic acids and alcohols into acetic acid. And in the last stage, yeah, that is methanogenesis. During this step, methane is being formed. Okay, methane is being formed by the action of methanogenic bacteria. Okay, and ultimately it leads to the formation of methane and carbon dioxide. Okay, yes, so yeah, this global process is controlled one by the rate of, you might be knowing, the always the first step. Okay, the hydrolysis step controls the rate of whole process. Yeah, so the same funda, same concept applies here. This hydrolysis step is the rate determination step, and once you control the rate of hydrolysis process, you can control the rate of whole composting. Yes, in this sense, this is not a wild method, but this is one of the controlled process of waste management. Okay, yes, then yes, along with this composting, yes, there is vermicomposting and there are thermal treatments which are being involved as well. Okay, so these thermal treatments, they involve, just a second. Okay, so these thermal treatments, they involve incineration or combustion. Okay, incineration or combustion, these are the thermal treatments which are being utilized for waste management strategies. And what happens? Yes, it is a practice that can be regarded as advantageous from the point of view of the significant reduction in the waste volume. Okay, so like whichever are the treatments which has been previously utilized, animal feeding, land filling and composting, there is no significant reduction in volume. Okay, rather land filling is the nuisance. Yeah, land filling is the nuisance causing treatment. But yeah, but in case of this thermal treatments, आपका combustion hai, you got pyrolysis, you have got gasification. Okay, they are characterized by a significant decrease in volume. Okay, yeah, and yes, definitely the plants, the thermal treatment plants, they should be carefully designed and operated by, yes, to prevent serious atmospheric air pollution issues. Yes, yes. So, however, the implementation of these thermal treatments compared to these three, animal feeding, land filling and composting, these are cost effective methods. Okay, on the other hand, thermal treatment, it involves higher investments and operating costs because of the great amount of energy that is being required to carry the thermal treatment out. Okay, yes, combustion heat can be partially recovered. Yes, so there are chances of recovery of the combustion heat as well and used in the incineration process itself. Okay, where you can use this, yes, to preheat the air or destined to power generation according to the needs and interests. Okay, now this thermal treatment generates a huge amount of solid residue. This solid residue is nothing but the ash. Okay, ash formed by part of the inorganic fraction of the solid fuels used, which most frequently is landfilled, although applications have been developed to use ashes as building materials. Okay, yes. So even though there is significant reduction in volume, yes, there is this generation of ash, but yes, this ash either it can be landfilled, yeah, or it can be used in civil materials, or it can be it can be incorporated as a filler in various materials. Okay, yes. So yes, so these were the traditional food waste management treatments. Yeah, now when we compare these traditional food waste management strategies versus novel valorization techniques, yes, these traditional food waste management techniques, they are nothing but the basic biological or chemical transformations of the organic constituents of the waste, normally leading to very simple molecules. Okay, now these simple molecules are nothing but a solid that finally adopts a relatively inert form. Okay, so ultimately, yeah, ultimately, whenever you're adopting these strategies, ultimately there is generation of, say, some amount of sludge, compost, slag, and ashes. Yeah, and also they may be responsible for generation of wastewater streams as well. They are mainly leaches. Okay, yes, so what happens? Yeah, what happens as a result, despite of being capable of providing some useful products? Okay, yes, there are some useful products as well. Yeah, so for example, we have got biogas. Yeah, in terms of composting, yes, we have got compost. Yeah, we have got fertilizer, we have got vermicompost. Yeah, I forget to mention, along with composting, there is vermicomposting as well. Yeah, wherein the biodegradation is being carried out with the help of earthworms. Okay, now basically this vermicomposting is being, it is more on the safer side. Okay, and it is being, what we can say, it is being advised to follow the technique of vermicomposting as compared to the composting. Okay, so yeah, along with the fertilizer generation, along with the generation of compost, along with the generation of biogas, along with the generation of heat and power, okay, heat and power, all these processes, yeah, all these processes along with these beneficial effects, yes, they are detrimental. Yeah, they are detrimental to environment to some extent. Okay, yes, as you can see in this image, food waste in landfill breaks down anaerobically, producing methane, a greenhouse gas which is 21 times more potent than CO2. Okay, yes, and again there are environmental risks involved. For example, atmospheric air pollution, greenhouse gases emission, and wastewater and solid waste production. Yes, okay. So in contrast, okay, on the contrary, when we are adopting valorization techniques, okay, yes, this is an emerging technology, this is an emerging strategy, okay, these valorization methods, they are proposed. Why they are proposed? For not destroying the nutrients and other valuable components, okay, at the same time, okay, at the same time, these valorization techniques, they are, okay, they are viable. They are viable in terms of economy, environment, natural resources consumption. Yes, in short, okay, in short, these valorization techniques, they ensure the profitability as well as sustainability. Okay, yes, and that way, yes, these valuable compounds which are present in these agricultural food waste or animal based food waste, they also have high value added nutrients, ingredients, chemicals which may have further value added use. Okay, so in short, this valorization is a more efficient approach, yeah, wherein the attention to be paid that there is as much less harm is being produced to the environment, yeah, and at the same time it is economically feasible. Okay, yes, so coming to the next slide, yes, in present days there is this integrated approach which is being proposed and which is being followed by the industries. Okay, yes, so as all of us know, these waste products which has been generated from food industry, they have certain characteristics or certain components, certain composition that is useful in one way. Okay, and along with these ingredients there is small form that needs to get disposed of. Okay, or yes, that can be used as civil material, as a filler, or it can be subjected to landfills hai, or we have got thermal treatments. Yes, so these days this integrated approach is being followed. Okay, yes, so what this integrated approach is about, okay, even though the conventional techniques for managing food waste have improved in recent years, only a little fraction of the residues generated can be valorized in some way. Okay, among these techniques, landfilling and incineration are regarded as the least desirable option. Why? For, as we have seen, okay, as we have seen, it contributes more to the air pollution. Okay, it is responsible for the production of gases. Yeah, even during the landfilling, there might be the formation of leachate. Yeah, so uh, whenever we are performing the landfilling practice, there might be chances of whichever is the water content. Yeah, as we know, ki the food waste, yeah, the food industry waste is higher in moisture content. Okay, so the moisture may get settled down and it may form a leach. Okay, so this landfilling and same with the incineration, yeah, incineration, the combustion is responsible for, yes, at the same time with the production of this syngas, yeah, the end product of say incineration or combustion, yeah, as compared to the syngas, yes, at the same time there is generation of some more harmful gases as well. Okay, so these two are the least desirable options. Yeah, conversely, composting, animal feeding, anaerobic digestion, yeah, despite implying some valorization of the residues, yield low value products, thus neither being excessively attractive strategies for valorizing food industry waste. Right? Yes. So therefore, appropriate waste management following a valorization based approach is strongly needed. Okay, so there has to be this two-way integrated approach. Yes, wherein you are valorizing the waste, yeah, wherein you are extracting the valuable components, wherein you are producing the biofuel, yeah, wherein you are turning your product into some more value-added product. At the same time, yeah, at the same time you are following certain conventional traditional approaches of waste management strategies as well. Okay, you might have seen the integration of, agricultural land with biorefinery. Okay, so this is what the recent practice which has been followed by food industry these days. Okay, yes. So coming to the next slide. Yeah, so basically food waste valorization. Okay, so this is the holistic concept of food production approach. What is the meaning of holistic? So what do you exactly mean by the word holistic? Yeah, holistic is complete. Okay, so whenever you're talking about any holistic concept, yeah, a holistic food production, yeah, holistic concept of food production means a complete food production, yeah, wherein there is zero waste. Okay, wherein there is zero waste that is usually discarded. Okay, yes, so waste produced from the agri-food industry constitute a loss of valuable biomass and nutrients. Yes, since these wastes have the potential to become useful products or even become raw material for the industries. Yes, so this biomass have n number of valuable nutrients. Yes, so this approach, the holistic food production approach, consists of integrating environmental aspects into the product development and food production. Okay, so the process, yeah, so this valorization approach, it starts from the food production. Yeah, it starts from your agricultural practice itself. Okay, into the product development and food production, always pursuing the highest product quality and safety and the highest efficiency. Okay, yes, so whenever you are performing your food processing practicals, yeah, suppose you are involved into the production of bread. Okay, so whichever is your practical, it is into the production of bread. So what is the calculation part that you do? Okay, so what do you calculate? Input, yeah, how what is the grammage of input that you are using, the output, yeah, and in between, yeah, in between there are processing losses, right? There are processing losses. At the same time there is waste. Have you ever thought, okay, have you ever thought, okay, why are you calculating? Okay, yes, why are you calculating all these parameters? Yes, why you are calculating this is, yes, the aim of any process, yeah, whether that is a lab scale process, whether that is a pilot scale process, or that is the industry scale process, the aim is always towards as much minimization of waste and processing losses as possible. Yeah, now when you are involved into the minimization of waste, when you are involved into minimization of losses, what does that implicate? That is nothing but you are increasing the efficiency of the particular process. Okay, yes, so this is nothing but the holistic concept of food production. Yes, this is nothing but the holistic concept of food production, wherein you are minimizing losses, wherein you are trying to minimize your waste. At the same time, you are increasing the efficiency. Okay, yes, so these valorization processes, they are nothing but, yes, you can term it as clean production processes, right? You can term it as clean production processes, wherein what happens, there are three goals of these clean production processes. Yeah, the first one is, as I have stated, yeah, take the very easy example of your bread production practical. Okay, waste reduction and recycling of valuable byproducts as a short-term goal. Yeah, then we have the medium-term goal. Yes, we have the medium term goal. Now, what is the medium term goal? Like whenever you're performing that bread practical, what is your aim? Yes, along with these calculations, yeah, along with all these engineering aspects, you want your bread to be soft and fluffy and tasty as well. Yeah, so yes, the development of new and efficient production process to add value, yes, to our actual food product as well. And along with that food product, whichever other residues are being generated, okay, so even those residues should be used further, okay, to add value to the residues in the medium term. Yes, and the development, okay, now jo bhi aapka residue bacha hai, okay, whichever are the residues left, okay, whichever are the residues left, the development of innovative products out from that residue, yes, such as functional foods, is the long-term goal of this cleaner production process. Okay, yes, so in this context, there is an ever-increasing interest in obtaining high value-added bioactive compounds through valorization. Okay, now these bioactive compounds, they can be used as, I think you must be pretty aware about, functional food ingredients, nutraceuticals, or for obtaining other valuable byproducts such as antibiotics, enzymes, biopolymers, and biofuels. Okay, yes. So these valorization techniques. Okay, so along with what we can say, along with these benefits, yes, there are certain drawbacks, there are certain limitations too. Okay, so developed valorization techniques having high potential for residual biomass exploitation are not yet implemented on a large scale. Now, why not? Okay, now the extent for this low degree of implementation is, it has been explained as a consequence of various factors. Okay, now what are these factors? The very first factor is the economic viability. Yeah, from an economic point of view, it is very costly. Okay, so basically what happens? Yeah, why I have termed that integrated approach. Why these agricultural lands are always accompanied by biorefineries these days? Rather, we are about to follow the practice. Okay, why there is need of developing this integrated approach. Now what happens if your residues are generated at agricultural land? Okay, now you might have studied during your meat and poultry industry कि whichever आपका fish catching होता है, okay, so that fish catching is always accompanied by a pilot level seafood processing unit, yeah, on the pilot ship. Okay, now the wastes are generated. Where the wastes are generated? At the agricultural land, right? At that pilot ship, at that pilot ship. Now, this agricultural land and pilot ship, they are usually far away from the point wherein you are actually going to process your waste. Okay, so during this logistic operation, there is high amount of economies involved. Okay, yes, so it is very costly to pick up the residues in the origin and transport them to the processing plant. Okay, now during this transportation, what happens? Decomposition and degradation of residues. Okay, so to avoid this decomposition and degradation, what do? You adopt some conservation methods such as refrigeration, preservative. It again adds value and ultimately acts as a hindrance to the process. Okay, so why do you need to do? What do you need to do? You need to locate the valorization centers in area having high density of agri-food industries. Okay, yes. So along with these factors, yes, there is difficulties in scaling up. Yeah, because there is a huge technological constraint, economical viability. All the valorization processes are very complex in nature. You need to adopt the multidisciplinary approach wherein there should be complete involvement of all the personnel. Yeah, and also there is some legal framework and regulation. Okay, yes. So what are the actual valorization strategies? Okay, so there are basically 4 conversion strategies: conversion of food waste to generate biofuels, extraction of value-added components, conversion of food waste via microbial activity for obtaining biomaterials, developing effective adsorbents from food wastes from wastewater treatment. Okay, yes. So talking about biofuel. Okay, biofuel. Yes, so definitely this biofuel is derived from biomass sources, which are usually having low carbon footprint, and they are recognized as a key element of an awaited sustainable energy system. Okay, so this biofuel found application in heating or cooking fuel or on-site electric power generation or cogeneration installations. Okay, yes, so there is one particular treatment which is being involved in the development or in the production of these biofuels, which is termed as dark fermentation. Herein, this is nothing but the anaerobic fermentation process. Okay, anaerobic bacteria are involved, and it is usually employed for the production of biohydrogen. Okay, now this process is highly dependent on the kind of microorganism and the metabolic pathway, the substrates which are being used as inoculum and feedstock. Okay, and the preferred substrates for this dark fermentation are monosaccharides. Okay, yes, so this is a list of various studies those have been conducted on this dark fermentation process, and I'll just brief you about it. Okay, the findings are, yes, in all these various studies those have been carried out, varied amount of output has been um, found. Okay, so just to say that yes, the process is dependent on all the factors, right? Yes, so coming to the next slide that we have, yes, the bioethanol process. Yeah, yes, again, this is a type of biofuel, liquid biofuel. The most promising raw material which is used for bioethanol production is apple pomace. Okay, yes, herein the substrate can be fermented in solid state with or without pre-treatments. Okay, yes, again, there are certain studies which have reported the production of bioethanol from grape pomace, tomato serum, from carrot pomace, and from household food waste. Okay, now there is one drawback of using this apple pomace or all these raw material is the seasonal availability of the substrate. Okay, yes, the next powerful that we have is biobutanol. Yes, it is higher energy density, lower volatility, and less corrosive characters. Okay, it is not hygroscopic, which improves the stability of biobutanol. Now, the raw material or the substrate that is being used for biobutanol is usually lignocellulosic biomass. Okay, and now this for example, we can say rice straw, okay, or wheat straw. So apart from landfilling, apart from composting, yes, you can use your rice straw, you can use your wheat straw for the production of biobutanol. Basically, non-edible phytomers of crops. Okay, they can be used for biobutanol production. Yes, there is one study that states that apple pomace supplemented with nitrogen and minerals can, achieve the concentration of 22 grams per liter of biobutanol. Okay. Yes. Okay. So next to biofuels, we have bioactive components. I think you all are aware about what bioactive components are. Okay. Yes. So there is the growing trend in industry. Okay, towards the development of new value-added products using these bioactive components. Yeah, and yes, these bioactive components can be extracted from all the structural parts of crop. Okay, yes, so 60% of the new drugs which have been developed for medicinal purposes have been obtained through structural modification of compounds recovered from natural matrices. Okay, and these natural matrices can be the waste products generated from food processing industry too. Okay, yes, so yes, they are used as dietary supplements or nutraceuticals. Caps, they can be used in capsule form, powder form, tablet or pill form. The effective exploitation is still needed. Okay, and yes, they can be produced without causing significant environmental impacts. Okay, yes, so there are various groups of these bioactive compounds. We are very well aware about phenolic compounds. These are characterized with a wide range of physiological properties. Okay, so winery byproducts are found to have phenolic acids. For example, gallic, caprylic acid, flavonoids, as well as contains tannins. Okay, then apple pomace is found to have chlorogenic acid, gallic acid, quercetin, and derivatives, catechin, procyanidins, and some dihydrochalcones. Okay, now these dihydrochalcones, they are responsible, not responsible, I can comment, but yes, they are found to be helpful in combating cancer as well. Okay, then olive residue is found to be rich in phenolic alcohol. Okay, the next class of bioactive component is terpenoids. Yes, this is the largest class of plant secondary metabolites. Carotenoid is, one of the major part of this terpenoids, and they are responsible for yellow, orange, and red colors. Okay, yes, so again, these terpenoids, they have ability to prevent certain cancers and the age-related degeneration. They have potent antioxidant activities. You can derive, you can extract these terpenoids from, say, carrot or pumpkin byproducts. Beta carotene is reported. Then lycopene can be produced from tomato peel and pomace, and then D-limonene can be extracted from orange peel. Okay, coming to dietary fiber, it is a complex mixture of non-digestible polysaccharides, waxes and lignin. Okay, cellulose, hemicellulose, and lignin constitute the insoluble fiber fraction, while the soluble fiber includes pectin, beta-glucans, fructans, and arabinoxylan. Okay, and I think all of us know the health benefits. I think I can omit this part. Okay, yeah. Now the other interesting part is seed oil. Okay, so these seeds is one of the very common byproduct or waste product which is being generated from food industry. Yeah. So those are the seeds, say apple seeds, grape seeds, right? Pomegranate seeds. Okay. So you can extract oil from those seeds. Okay. So these seed oils, they have higher phenolic content. These are the few numbers, okay, wherein tomato seed, tomato pomace, grape seed, how much is the oil content they have. Okay. Pomegranate seed is, rich in that fucinic acid. Okay, now what are the techniques of this extraction? Okay, we know about bioactive constituents, we know about the dietary fiber, we know about the oils. Okay, now there are several techniques. Okay, there is solvent extraction, mechanical pressing, supercritical fluid extraction, ultrasound assisted extraction, enzyme assisted solvent extraction. Yes, all these techniques can be used for the extraction of these oils. Okay, from the waste material which is being generated from the food industry. Okay, so these are the conventional extraction techniques. Okay, so basically, what is the basis of these techniques? I think all of you, like, you must be aware about these extraction techniques. Okay, so the basis is the solvent extraction power and the applied heat or their combination. Okay, so the main conventional techniques, those have been utilized for this waste management is Soxhlet extraction, hydrodistillation, and maceration. Okay, and all of them have their own range of efficiency. Okay, yes. Now we have got novel technologies. Okay, now yes, there are, whenever there is novel, okay, whenever there is novel, why there is the need to, produce or to come up with these novel technologies? Yes, there are certain drawbacks with the conventional techniques. Okay, yes, so there are limitations as difficulty to obtain high purity, use of costly solvents, longer time of extraction, possible degradation of heat labile compounds, and low extraction selectivity. These were the limitations. Now, to overcome these limitations, yes, food technologists have come up with these novel technologies. So to name a few, we have microwave assisted extraction, we have ultrasound extraction, yes, we have pulse electric field extraction, we have got enzyme assisted extraction, liquid liquid extraction, solid liquid extraction, supercritical fluid extraction as well. Okay, yes, so apart from these extraction techniques, yes, there are certain commercial enzymes as well. Yes, those can be produced from the waste which has been generated from the food industry. Okay, so commercial enzymes, they are mostly expensive. Yeah, so when you are utilizing this food waste, okay, food industry waste as a substrate for this enzyme production, yes, definitely there is reduction in the cost of the substrate itself. Yes, and hence the total cost of the production process. Okay, yes, so there are a variety of enzymes that can be produced. Yes, you can go through the list of enzymes. Yes, and the production processes, they are submerged fermentation and solid state fermentation. Okay, yes, so this is the list of enzymes. Then we have exopolysaccharides. Yes, even these exopolysaccharides can be synthesized using food industry waste. Now the same thing, okay, the substrates which are being conventionally used for the production of exopolysaccharides are glucose and sucrose. Now when you are, substituting this glucose and sucrose, when you are substituting this expensive raw material with your waste which has been generated from the food industry, it becomes a cost-effective process. Yes, yes. So exopolysaccharide production using this food industry waste, it is the cost-effective method. For example, xanthan gum, there are reports when xanthan gum have been industrially produced with the use of date palm juice byproducts. Okay, and yes, pullulan has been produced with the help of wheat molasses, coconut byproducts, and yes, there are reports saying that yes, curdlan production has been taken place with the help of sugarcane molasses, maize and potato starch hydrolysates, asparagus waste, orange waste as well. Okay, yes. So, in short, what? Okay, in short, what? Whenever you are applying this valorization approach for your waste management, what is the first thing that comes into the picture is holistic concept. Okay, holistic concept as in, yes, there should be complete utilization of all the raw materials. Yeah, there should be as much minimum waste or byproduct which is being generated. Okay, even though there is generation of waste product and byproduct, it should be further treated. Okay, it should be further treated into some value-added product. Okay, and if that is not possible, then and then only you are supposed to go with our conventional techniques. Yeah, that is disposal. Always remember that hierarchy. Okay, the 3R concept. Okay, yes. So to conclude the topic, food industry wastes, if untreated, can cause several damages to the environment. Yes, conventional treatments are complex and possess certain drawbacks. The valorization must be carried out with low environmental impact technologies using extractive or biochemical processes to obtain valuable products. Okay, and yes, these valorization processes, it is a multidisciplinary approach. Yes, and how it is useful? Yes, it is useful to achieve a zero waste economy as well as, towards the maintenance of more sustainable bio-based society. Okay. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sonal, for such a wonderful session. And I would be happy if you can stop sharing the screen.
Yeah, sure, ma'am.
Yes, so we have a lot of questions that needs to be answered, because we have covered very well on the topic which is on waste utilization. And particularly in India, if you see, and you have already worked with some of the big multinationals wherein already they are processing lot of food and lot of waste is also generated. But how much India is very well versed and aware about the full utilization of this waste, and how many industries, even if they are multinational, are very well, what you call that as a responsibility towards the environment, to protect the environment, and how many of they have been successfully utilized that waste for going or entering into that circular economy approach.
Yes, ma'am. So, frankly speaking, in India, the food industry scenario in India is really horrible. What I can comment about. Okay, so yes, although FSSAI has come up with certain rules and legislations with respect to the wastewater disposal, or whichever is the sewage that we are discarding into the municipal sewage. Yes, so there is a very less number of industries that is those are actually following these practices.
Mm-hmm. And even if you look at, sometimes the cost of processing this waste goes so high, as you said. So therefore, nobody wants to, additionally add money in processing, and then the outcome that is there out of that waste is not very cost effective. Is that the reason for taking a back foot by the industries, or what?
Yes, that is one of the reason, because whichever are our agricultural lands, basically the agricultural area is isolated. Okay, so some part of the nation is dedicated for the agricultural land, whereas all these processing units are far away from the agricultural land, or say food production units. So as I have stated, the logistic takes the huge amount of the treatment.
Mm-hmm.
Process.
Okay,
Yeah.
so yesterday I was in another session where I was moderating one session again for Institute of Chemical Technologies program, where we had a speaker from petrochemical industry, and he was a serial entrepreneur who had many companies, petrochemical industries. So how does this biofuel concept and its sustainability in a long term, and that fuel prices are increasing like anything, so any comment on biofuel and its hope for the future, and how we as a technologist can take this ahead?
Definitely, this biofuel is really a novel concept, okay, towards the what we can say sustainable ecosystem as well, and all the resources, yeah, all the resources they are limited, okay, they are limited, and somebody had said ki, yes, they might end in someday.
Mhm.
Okay, so yes, definitely the production of biofuel, rather all industries should take up this integrated approach for the production of biofuel, or integration with biorefinery that will be helpful for us towards the sustainable environment practices.
Okay, so I will take one more question. This question is from Rajat Goyal, and Rajat would like to know that, even if we set up refineries or valorization plants near the field, there is always in India, there is a big problem of labor. So pulling all that residues, and you see, I have seen the farmers, they just, and you are also from Jalgaon, we have seen that, particularly Jalgaon is very famous for that banana production,
Mhm.
and the banana leaves later on after cutting that, there is a lot of waste generated, and I have seen the farmers directly put the fire, so they burn
Yes.
it out, and then again it's a very huge residual carbon dioxide and bad gases in the environment and environmental pollution. So Rajat would like to know that if farmers are pulling them out, then again the finance involved into them, who will pay them off, and that's why straight away the farmers burn that out. So what is your comment on that?
Okay, so basically, the farmers in India, they need this training. Okay, now once they are trained, and even I feel the government should come up with certain policies, okay, wherein the farmers should work towards these policies, and definitely, if they are trained properly, they will come to know that yes, it is a value addition. It is it's they're getting return with cost, rather more cost, so that these practices they can come into can be practiced in actual.
Yeah, there is one more question from Garusha Jain, and she would like to know particularly your comment on biogas production. Will that be affected if we are, if we go with differential extraction from same waste substrate at different phases, and then finally subjecting it to biodigestion? So, how much will biogas production be affected?
Yes, definitely. All these conventional treatment strategies. So yes, composting is one of them, biogas production is one of them. So all these are dependent on the type characteristics of substrate that is being utilized. So that is why my first statement was you need to characterize your waste first. Once you have characterized your waste, yes, definitely you can set up the further plan accordingly so
Wow.
that there will be an efficient production.
Yes, absolutely. And I think nowadays, government is putting a lot of money and efforts in these system. Even researchers and their approach has been into valorization and waste utilization. So there are few more questions. So audiences, what we can do, I will compile. And I know that Dr. Sonal, you have another meeting to attend, but while talking and delivering this such an important issue and discussion, we never realize that the time is running out of our
Yeah.
hands. So I, on behalf of food engineering and technology department, and on my very own behalf, would like to thank you so much for taking out your time, and I look forward for your future association in mentoring and empowering the capacity of our students. So thank you so much, and stay safe and have a great day.
Yes, thank you so much, ma'am. All of you stay safe as well.
Thank you so much.